Arielle Kane didn't cry. That was the moment he stopped looking away. The emergency department at St. Vincent Medical Center had mastered the art of controlled chaos. Monitors screamed. Stretchers rolled past in violent bursts of motion. Nurses moved fast enough to look mechanical under the fluorescent lights that made everyone appear more exhausted than they already were. And in the middle of it all stood Arielle Kane. Calm. Focused. Untouchable. Her dark curls were pinned tightly at the base of her neck, though a few strands had escaped hours ago. Her navy scrubs were wrinkled from a 14-hour shift. One hand moved across a patient chart, while the other steadied an elderly woman trembling in a wheelchair beside her. "The CT team is ready for you now, sweetheart," Arielle said softly. The woman nodded immediately. People always trusted her voice. That was when Dr. Marcus Rain crossed the floor. Chief of surgery. Hospital celebrity. The kind of man whose reputation entered rooms before he did. Conversations lowered when he walked by. Nurses straightened instinctively. Interns looked terrified to breathe too loudly around him. He stopped directly behind Arielle. And without warning, his hand twisted violently into her hair. The yank snapped her backward hard enough to make the chart fall from her hands. The entire ER froze. No one moved. No one spoke. Across the trauma bay, a man in a black tailored coat slowly lifted his eyes from the glass of whiskey in his hand. Elias Kane watched every second of it. The pain hit fast, sharp enough to blur the edges of the room for half a second. But Arielle Kane did not scream. She stood there perfectly still while Dr. Marcus Rain released her hair like he had merely adjusted something that belonged to him. The chart lay scattered across the polished floor between them. Around the nurse's station, monitors continued beeping into a silence so tense it felt unnatural. Marcus looked down at her with the casual arrogance of a man protected by titles, money, and years of people refusing to challenge him. "I asked for bed 12's chart 3 minutes ago," he said coldly. Not apology. Not embarrassment. Expectation. Arielle slowly bent to collect the papers. Every movement controlled. Measured. Her scalp still burned where he touched her. She could feel eyes watching from every direction now. Nurses pretending to type. Residents suddenly fascinated by computer screens. Everyone seeing it. No one stepping in. Because Marcus Rain was power inside these walls. And power always expected silence. Arielle handed him the chart without trembling. But her eyes changed. Something behind them hardened quietly. Across the trauma bay, Elias Kane leaned back in his chair, his jaw tightening almost invisibly. He had spent most of his life around dangerous men. Violent men. Men who mistook power for ownership. But something about the way she refused to break unsettled him. Arielle Kane didn't cry. And suddenly, he couldn't stop watching her. The night kept moving like nothing had happened. That was the ugliest part. A child cried somewhere near triage. An ambulance crew pushed through the sliding doors with a bleeding construction worker. Phones rang. Machines beeped. The emergency room swallowed cruelty the same way it swallowed exhaustion, efficiently and without pause. And Arielle kept working inside it. She moved from patient to patient with the same composed precision she'd had before Marcus Rain touched her. Adjusting oxygen levels. Reassuring frightened families. Translating medical jargon into something human. Anyone watching closely would notice the difference only in her silence. She laughed less now. Smiled less. But she never lost control. Elias Kane noticed everything. From the private trauma suite upstairs, he watched her through the glass wall overlooking the ER floor. Officially, he was there because one of his executives had been stabbed during a failed robbery downtown. Unofficially, half the city knew Elias Kane rarely stayed anywhere longer than necessary. Yet 2 hours later, he was still there. Watching her. There was something dangerous about restraint like hers. Something that held his attention harder than panic ever could. Most people performed pain loudly. Arielle carried hers quietly, and somehow that felt heavier. Then the shift supervisor approached her station. One glance at the woman's nervous expression told Elias this night wasn't finished destroying her yet. And when Arielle's shoulders went still, he slowly set his whiskey glass down. "Arielle, administration needs to see you upstairs." The supervisor's voice came carefully rehearsed. Too careful. Arielle looked up from the medication log on her screen. "Now?" The woman nodded once. "It's regarding the incident with Dr. Rain." Incident. The word landed like an insult wrapped in corporate politeness. Around the nurse's station, nobody looked directly at her. Not because they didn't care. Because they were afraid. Fear lived inside hospitals like this. Fear of losing positions. Fear of crossing powerful men. Fear of becoming the next person quietly removed from the schedule. Arielle stood slowly. "What exactly is being discussed?" she asked. The supervisor hesitated just long enough to answer everything. "Dr. Rain filed a complaint saying you became aggressive and refused to cooperate with patient requests." For a moment, the world narrowed into something cold and almost unreal. He pulled my hair. The sentence sat inside her chest, heavy and furious. But Arielle already understood what this was. She had seen versions of it before. Institutions protecting the people who brought them prestige. Women expected to absorb humiliation professionally. Truth rewritten by whoever signed the larger paychecks. "I want the security footage preserved," she said quietly. The supervisor's expression shifted. That tiny reaction told her everything. Across the upper-level observation suite, Elias Kane's eyes darkened. Because he recognized the look on the supervisor's face instantly. The look of people already planning to bury the truth. By morning, Arielle Kane was sitting across from Human Resources, while the hospital tried to erase reality politely. Sunlight poured through the glass walls of the administrative office, bright and sterile and completely disconnected from the disaster unfolding inside it. A woman from legal sat beside the HR director taking notes, without ever fully looking at her. "Arielle," the director said gently, "pending investigation, we're placing you on temporary administrative leave." Temporary. Another soft word designed to hide something ugly. Arielle kept her hands folded in her lap, so nobody would notice how tightly her fingers had locked together. "And Dr. Rain?" she asked. The room went carefully quiet. "He remains on active surgical rotation while we review all available evidence." "Of course he does." The HR director slid a printed statement across the table. According to the document, Marcus Rain claimed Arielle had misinterpreted an attempt to get her attention during an emergency situation. Misinterpreted? Arielle stared at the word for 3 full seconds. Then she laughed once. Not because anything was funny. Because sometimes humiliation became so enormous it stopped feeling real. "He grabbed my hair in front of the entire emergency department," she said calmly. "That isn't a misunderstanding." The legal representative shifted uncomfortably. But nobody corrected her. Nobody apologized either. And somewhere across the city, Elias Kane was already making a phone call that would change the entire case. Elias Kane did not believe in coincidences. He believed in leverage, pressure points, systems. Every institution had weak places if you knew where to press hard enough. Hospitals were no different from banks, governments, or corporations. Eventually, everyone protected themselves before they protected the truth, which was why he made the call before Arielle Kane even left the building. "The security footage from St. Vincent's emergency department," he said calmly into the phone. "Pull every camera angle from last night and back it up off-site." A pause answered him. Then, "Understood, Mr. Kane." Elias ended the call and stared out across the skyline from the backseat of his car. Rain slid slowly across the tinted windows, turning the city into blurred silver lights. He should have moved on already. Normally he would have. A nurse humiliated by an arrogant surgeon had nothing to do with him. It wasn't his war. Wasn't his business. But every time he tried to dismiss it, he saw the exact moment Arielle looked back at Marcus Rain after he hurt her. No fear. No collapse. Just control stretched painfully tight. Something about that expression stayed under his skin. His phone buzzed again. Hospital administration requested footage access this morning, his security director reported. Looks like they're already trying to alter internal records. Elias's jaw tightened slightly. Too late. Because now he had the original footage. And for the first time in years, Elias Kane wanted something personally. 3 days later, the hospital offered Arielle Kane a settlement. Quiet resignation. Full benefits. Signed confidentiality agreement. Disappear gracefully, and they would make everything painless. Arielle sat inside her apartment staring at the documents spread across her kitchen table, while cold coffee sat untouched beside her. Outside, rain tapped softly against the windows. Inside, anger sat heavy beneath her ribs like something alive. They wanted silence. Not truth. Not accountability. Just silence expensive enough to feel legal. Her best friend Nina Vale paced the apartment barefoot, holding the settlement papers, like they personally offended her. This is insane, Nina snapped. They're trying to buy your humiliation before anyone asks questions. Arielle leaned back in her chair, exhausted. They know most people can't afford to fight this. That doesn't mean you stop. A long silence followed, because Nina was right. But fighting institutions like St. Vincent meant money, influence, lawyers, reputation destruction. Marcus Rain had all of those things already. Arielle had a suspended hospital ID badge sitting beside her coffee mug. Her phone vibrated suddenly across the table. Unknown number. She almost ignored it. Almost. Instead, she answered carefully. Hello? A deep male voice spoke immediately. They're going to tamper with the footage tonight. Arielle went completely still. Across the line, the stranger paused once before continuing. But I already secured the original copy. And somehow, before he even said his name, she knew exactly who was calling.